At ease, it's your boy Soul Immortal. Man, a couple of years ago, just days after my 40th birthday, I made a video. And this video was pretty much just me giving my assessment on what life was like at 40. Some of the things I talked about, man, were how we had bridged the gap between generations. But I'd also talked about how we were failing the generation behind us. It's a good video. Check it out. I'll be sure to leave a link. Now, fast forward to today. Here I am, only a couple of weeks into the age of 42. My birthday was on July the 4th. And I feel like it's time that I give another assessment on life as I see it, man. And the thing that I want to talk about, man, is something that will not only explain why or how we're in our current conditions, but it'll also give us the ability to predict or create how the future plays out. And the thing that I want to talk about, man, is legacy. Let's talk about it. Now, I'm a firm believer, man, that the things that we do, and just as important, the things that we don't do, are gonna play a huge part, man, on generations and generations that come behind us. And I think that the only way that we can ensure that these scenarios are better is to amend our legacy. So this is a picture of my father and my grandfather. Now, I never had the chance to meet my grandfather because shortly after this photo was taken, which would have been either late 60s or early 70s, he passed away. You know, and in addition to him passing away, this is one of the only photographs that I have of him. Now, the reason that this is one of the only photos that I have of him is because, one, I hear that he was always out drinking, man, and was just never around. And two, he abandoned my dad and his family at a very young age. Now, all my years as a kid, man, my dad never mentioned any of this stuff to me, man. And in fact, all he ever said was that, all he ever talked about was that his family grew up in a quote-unquote shotgun house, is what they call the style homes that you see behind him in the picture. So he mentioned that, and he always mentioned that his dad always told him to work hard. Now, looking back, man, I get it. I mean, it wasn't that my dad was trying to keep information away from me, or it wasn't that he was, embarrassed of his childhood. What he was doing, man, was trying to amend the blueprint. See, to amend the blueprint, what a man must do is not focus on the negative from the past, but focus on the positive and focus on moving forward, right? I mean, even my grandfather, man, even though his story seems like one of a very inconsiderate man, you have to look at it, man. This man was one generation removed from slavery, man. So the foundation that he had, man, was very limited or rocky at most, man. So if anything, man, him giving my father the words of advice, man, to always work hard was the foundation for my family, man. Was where it all started. Was the first building block, man. So just like my dad did, man, he was in his own way amending our legacy. And looking back, I get it, man. I fully understand some things now, man. My father had taken the only thing that my grandfather could give him, and he began to build legacy on top of that, man. And that one thing was to work hard. And if I can't remember anything else about my father, man, he definitely worked hard, man. I think for the most part of my life, man, my dad worked night shift, man. And I remember every day was almost like clockwork. I remember my mom would make dinner, man. We would all have dinner, man. And as the family began to shut down and everybody started going to bed, she would make his lunch, put it in a lunch kit, and then I would hear him go out the door, headed to work, man. And he worked at a plant in town, and they gave lots of overtime. And so there'll be many times, man, where he was coming in late in the morning, man, from getting all those hours. Now, at the same time, my dad was a minister, which means, you know, once he got off, man, he spent plenty of time in his office, you know, reading and studying and preparing for his next sermon. But one thing I can remember, man, even though this man had to be, you know, super tired, man, from working all these hours at night, man, and spending all of his hours during the day studying and going to a variety of different churches, I can always remember that he was always at my games. Now, I could have baseball games and football games, man, that started right before his shift. And he would always show up, man. And anytime I had a good play, man, I could always look over there at him, man, and he would be there leaning against the fence. And I know he had to be tired, man. But now I understand. Because even though he was tired, man, I now know what he was doing. And what he was doing, man, is he was setting precedents. What he was doing, man, is building our family legacy. What he was doing is amending the blueprint. So instead of him telling me all these stories about how when he grew up, man, and when he participated in all these events, how his father was never there, he never mentioned that. Instead, what he did was made sure that he showed up. That if I had an event, man, he made sure that I was there, man. You know, and in a very short window, man, my father taught me a lot of stuff, man, that would change our family legacy, man. And I plan on sharing a lot of that with you guys, man, up in on some of these upcoming videos. So recently, my son, who was 10 years old at the time, came to live with me, man. His mom and I, you know, who get along very well, just decided that he was at a stage in life, man, where he needed to be around me more, man. And I can tell you, man, a father raising his son alone, man, there's no greater feeling, man. You know, just being in our man cave. You know, some days we can just sit there and watch Sports Center all day without any interruption. Some days we can sit there and just play Call of Duty all day and just be me. And some days we can just sit around and act stupid, act a fool, man. It's just a wonderful feeling, man. But it's a good thing. So recently he celebrated his 11th birthday. Happy birthday, happy birthday, come on. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, Nice. Now, shortly after that, man, I celebrated my 42nd birthday. And after celebrating my 42nd birthday, man, I realized a few things that I never thought about before. He had turned 11 years old, and I had turned 42 years old. Now, the reason those numbers stood out to me, man, is because that was the same age of my father and I, right? And the reason I remember this is because when I turned 12 years old and my father turned 43 years old, he was killed. So those numbers stood out. But it made me think, man. I said, if something were to happen to me today, like what have I taught him up to this point? And I ask myself, if something were to happen to me a year from now, like what would I teach him between today and a year from now that I know that would stick with him, man? My son and I, man, we've had several grown man conversations, man. Even when he was, 7, 8, 9 years old, man, I was always talking to him as if he was, teenage, 18-year-old mindset, man. So he's fully aware, man, of a lot of things that most kids his age aren't aware of, man. Now, the one thing I've always tried to instill in my son is this, and that's, if you're gonna do something, you need to strive to be the absolute best at it, or you need to completely leave it alone. And the most important thing, guys, is when we try to instill these things in them, we have to walk it like we talk it, man. And my son, he's seen me in my career over the last handful of years, man. He's seen me when I was in the oil and gas industry, man. Coming in ground level and just exceeding. And he's seen me in my new company, man. I came in first year broke even, and my last 2 years, man, I've been #1 globally. And he's there, he's watching that. He's seeing the awards. Me and him are celebrating with the steak dinners, man. So this is something that I'm trying to instill in him, but it's important that he see me walking that same track. You know what I mean? And I feel the exact same way about making MGTOW videos, man. I remember making videos a year ago, and what I understood, or what I realized, is that my videos sounded a lot like everybody else's videos, man. And it was at that point I said, I'm no longer adding value, man. I'm no longer separate from the rest, man. And I removed myself from the situation. I didn't make videos for 6, almost 7 months, man. And what I had to do was find myself, man, and see what made me different, man, before I made any other videos. And if you ask me, man, my goal is for ImmortalMindz to be the MGTOW channel, the best MGTOW channel. I feel like it is the best MGTOW channel. And the very moment that I feel like it's not, I'll shut it down. But that's what I try to instill in my son, man, to always strive to be the best, or just don't do it. Now, I teach him this. I teach him that first, he needs to find himself, find out who he is. And what I mean by that is, he needs to know what he likes, not what he thinks the world wants him to like, but what he likes. Whether it's football, whether it's mastering the arts and finding an instrument, whether it's doing whatever he wants, man, he needs to identify who he is. And then from there, man, all I do is instill the legacy that's already been handed down. I use the foundation of work hard that my grandfather gave me. I use that that you should always show up, amongst many other elements that my father taught me, man. And then I tell him just to be the best at it, man. And the rest is what it is. So, in a nutshell, man, it's all about us as men doing our part, man, to make sure that our legacy is better than it was before we got it. And at the end of the day, man, it's really about this. Our kids will forget about most of the things that we do for them, man. They won't remember what you got on for their birthday. They won't remember, the 1,001 times you took them to Chuck E. Cheese pizza. And most of the time they won't even remember the vacations you took them on. But what they will never forget is this. One, they'll never forget if you were there for them, man. And I don't mean there for them, showering them with these expensive gifts or whatever. What I mean is did you support their dream? Did you support their efforts while they were here, man? Were they able to look on the sidelines and see you after they made that good play? You know, or were you in the stands when they were at that recital? You know what I'm saying? And two, they will never forget what you taught them. And I'm not talking about teaching Bobby Jr. how to throw a spiral, man, or teaching little Rebecca how to play the cello. I'm talking about real information, man. I'm talking about, did you give them information, man, that will change the course of family history? You know, at 42, man, you know, I still plan on living a long life. But one thing I'm realizing at this age is that it's not only about me, man, that I have to live my life for myself, as well as, you know, the life of my son and my son's son. You know, so when I make these videos, man, a huge part of me is talking to you. You know, a part of me is talking to myself. But the largest part of me, man, is talking to my, a 21-year-old version of my son. It's your boy Soul Immortal, and I'm out.